On the one hand, we've got a precedent for beautiful things growing out of little groups of people like 12, and I've learned a lot from Dorothy Day, and passed away now, but she was a great Catholic activist, and she said our goal is not to grow bigger and bigger, but smaller and smaller. Almost all the images Jesus uses for the kingdom of God are these infectious things, but they start small, or like yeast in the bread. You can't even hardly see it. And mustard seed, salt, light, they're pervasive things, but it's not about overpowering. It's not about the towers of the cedars of Lebanon. This is about the mustard seed, kind of the invasion of love and grace. I think one of our hopes is that a generation from now, when people hear the word Christian, they don't think anti-gay, pro-guns, anti-environment, anti-women, pro-war. A lot of the things that have become associated with evangelicalism that look so different from Jesus. So we want to be known for love again. I want people to hear the word Christian and think love. And I want them to think not this sentimental love, like Dostoevsky said, not the sentimental love of storybooks and fairy tales, but the harsh and dreadful love that keeps you up at night, that gets you put in jail. It's troublemaking love. That's what I think we want to see. That's what Jesus embodied for us. But what that really looks like, I think, is concrete action, and so it's interesting that Jesus' final account of the judgment, when all of us are gathered before God, Matthew 25, Jesus says, we're going to be asked a few questions. And interestingly enough, they're not just doctrinal questions, Okay, virgin birth, agree or disagree or strongly disagree. That creation story, was that really 6 days? Or, but I mean, a doctrinal test, we might wish it was something like that, because that'd be pretty easy. But actually, we're going to be asked, when I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was a stranger, did you welcome me in? When I was an immigrant and a refugee, did you welcome me in? When I was in prison, did you come visit me? Those are the demonstrations of our faith. Now, I believe that we're saved by grace, not by our works. We're saved by what Jesus did, but our works don't earn our salvation, but they demonstrate it. They do demonstrate it. And if in the end, our relationship with God doesn't translate into visiting people in prison and welcoming people who are homeless or immigrants and caring for the hungry and trying to change why people are hungry to begin with, then I think we've got to question whether or not we're really Christians.
Where do you think that drift happens from the teachings of Jesus to like where we look at evangelical Christianity now? Like, how do you drift toward something that's so much more fundamentalist? Like how does that happen?
So, there's a few pieces of this that are worth paying attention to. I guess for me, one of the things I began to notice was what is important to realize is not just that we're reading scripture, but we're reading it from a certain social location. And that determines how the message gets translated. Or better yet, who is teaching and preaching the message to us is being interpreted and being translated for us, And so I like that book that Bob Eckblad wrote called Reading the Bible with the Damned. And he said what's important is not just reading the Bible, but who you read it with. And there's that old saying that as long as the hunter rather than the hunted is telling the story, then we only get a certain perspective, And so I think that we've got to have other people that are helping us hear better. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to hear folks in different social locations that are listening to the same words. But that matters because, even things like the stories Jesus told the rich man and Lazarus, these parables, you hear the story differently if you're reading it with rich folks or if you're reading it with somebody that's living on the street, But the other thing, this is what's so important too, I think, is that we've turned Christianity into a belief system. That that even our language is, are you a believer? You know, it's about believing. And beliefs are important. You know, I think that we do come to these important movements in our mind where we believe Jesus was the Son of God and rose from the dead, and those things matter. But if beliefs are all we have, a set of doctrines on paper, doctrines are hard things to love, you know, and you can't wrap your hands around them. And that's why I think it's beautiful that in Jesus, we don't just have words on paper anymore. We have the Word become flesh. And we've got to flesh out that love in the world so you can be a believer. But they're not going to know that we're Christians by our T-shirts and bumper stickers and doctrinal statements, but by our love. And so that even the scriptures say even the demons believe, you know, and at one point in Corinthians it says that we can have faith to move mountains and speak in the tongues of men and of angels and do all sorts of miracles and prophecies, fathom all the depths of knowledge, but if we don't have love, it still falls short. And so what we've got to do, I think, is not let go of those beliefs that are so important, but couple them with practices and lifestyle commitments. And that's why, you know, when we talk about Christianity, it's not just a way of believing, it's a way of living in the world, that we live simply so that other people can have their daily bread. We practice nonviolence in a world full of violence. We believe in racial justice, and we believe in ecological care, because these are all theological, they're all rooted in our faith. So you know, a lot of the churches talked about orthodoxy and orthopraxis. We spend a lot of time on the orthodoxy, which is right thinking, where we get doctrine from. But orthopraxis is about practice, right living. And I think those have to go together like blades of scissors. They don't work without each other. And so the things we believe are important. But I think our challenge in this day is the challenge of, what does Christian living look like? What does it look like to live the Sermon on the Mount in America right now?
How would you paint the landscape of what's happening in America right now? And I guess what is your role or your hope to change? Like, what is what's wrong?
What's certainly true is that some of the loudest voices and most public voices of Christianity haven't always been the most beautiful voices. And some of the very beautiful voices of our faith have not been amplified or haven't had the attention that they deserve. And so that's why it's a strange world we live in, where you can have incredible expressions of faith and living and love and compassion and justice, and then a guy in Florida burns the Quran in the name of God. And that it's so easy to hijack the headlines with hatred, and for 10 people at Westboro Baptist Church to hold a sign that says God hates people, and that somehow begins to monopolize the airwaves. And I think beyond those are kind of out there, but what's happened, I think, in evangelicalism, as some of us would say, or some of the folks that we think of, it's almost like some of our Christianity's been colonized. That there's been an identity theft. These older white folks like the Jerry Falwells and Pat Robertsons and James Dobsons and John Hagees have tried to define what Christianity looks like, because they've owned the Christian TV and they've had the most money or whatever but I think what's beautiful now is we're seeing all kinds of stuff bubbling up, and it doesn't happen all at once. Water doesn't just bubble; it starts to steam and warm up, and little bubbles begin to trickle, and then you start to see it rolling. And I think that's what we see right now in our country, is there's a movement happening, and it's not exclusive to Christianity. I mean, there's the movement for Black Lives and these Parkland students and the Dreamers. I mean, people I think are waking up, and I want to see the church a part of that movement. I want to see the church championing the justice in the world and being a consistent voice for life, and not just on the abortion issue, but around gun violence and immigration and the movement for Black lives. All of these are movements of life as well. You know, you look at the Beatitudes, blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers. Those are the things God blesses. Those are the things that America has damned. We have come to adore very different things than those Beatitudes, like meekness. No, we want to be proud, you know, like merciful. We will show no mercy on evildoers, you know, like, so the gospel of Jesus is at stake right now. And maybe in America, there's a particular danger because Kierkegaard put it well. He said, where everything is Christian, nothing is Christian. Because we lose the distinctiveness, the contrast of what it means to, as Romans says, not to conform to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed, to live under a different reality, because we are aligned not with the patterns of the world that glorify the rich and powerful. We're aligned with Jesus, that is casting the mighty from their thrones and lifting up the lowly, where the last are first, the first are last. Like, that's an upside down kingdom. So that's in America, you know, we've changed. That's the difficulty. Our money says, "In God we trust," but our economy looks like the 7 deadly sins. You know, it's like I heard someone say, we get inoculated. It's a powerful word, because you think about like the flu vaccine. You get a little dose. You know, it's not enough to make you sick, but it actually it knocks it out. So like, if you get a little bit of Christianity, I think it endangers us to be inoculated from the real thing, you know? So I think what we need right now is we need folks to practice that, to read the Sermon on the Mount and say, what if Jesus really meant the stuff he said?